Yep. Welcome back to the Bees Like That podcast. As always, I'm your host, Chris, and it has been a minute. It's been a minute. What's been going on? A whole lot of the usual. I've been focusing on a couple of other things that, not to say that this isn't important, because this is very important to me, but there's a specific project that I've been meaning to work on, that I've been working on, and that I've been making some pretty good progress on lately. But I had to, I guess, go through a bit of a processing phase and kind of figure some things out. And a couple of things I had to figure out loud. One of them happened to take place. Well, maybe not that I figured it out, but I kind of unpacked it and made it make sense out loud and to a group of people who are like at least in close proximity to me professionally. And a few, like, they're close. We're close-ish, I guess. They're important to me, so I can say that. I guess I'll just dive right into the first part of it, and that is, y'all hear me talk about fundamental change like over and over and over. It's a repeated theme. It's something that is a major component in my life. And when I talk about the kind of change that I talk about, meaning spiritual and moral reformation. So that means, like, I'm talking about on a fundamental level. Like, I still am who I am, like at my essence, like in my core, like a person, who I am. But fundamentally, I'm a new thing. I'm a new creation. I won't ascribe a specific higher power, because I know that we all practice different things, so I'll leave that open to interpretation. But I'm a new creation. I'm something new, and I continue to grow and be shaped by and informed by my higher power and the tests and the blessings and all the stuff that come with it. Every single day, every moment of every single day. Does it mean that I get it right? No. Does it mean that I still have a long way to go? Absolutely. Does it mean that I'm better? Yes. Does it mean that I'm better than? No. Well, better than I used to be, but better than anyone else? No. But one of the things that's been tripping me up, and I've been kind of banging my head against, and it's taken me a while to identify. I mean, it's something that I've known, but I've had to really say out loud and define it, right? So that I can, reconcile this stuff in my brain and kind of formulate a path forward and a solution or a plan of attack or a message. And sometimes you have to wait for those things to be delivered to you. I'm a firm believer in that. Like, you have to be ready. And God ain't just going to give you stuff that you're not ready for. But I think I was ready for this part of it. And I've said it before, but not in the way that I think that makes the most sense the way that it does now, or makes the sense that it does now. What am I talking about? I'm talking about to paint with broad strokes and make it general, because I don't want to block or put up barriers for this message to anyone from any certain one demographic. So I'll paint it broadly and just say that there are systems in place, right, in society and in culture in this country that don't want. They say they do. It says that it does. It asks for these things. But then the back channel meetings and the true desire of these systems and the controllers or the operators within these systems, the people who operate at the behest of the system and like its leaders and managers, isn't that they don't want the true moral and reformation, the true fundamental change. That's not what they want. That's not what these systems want. It's not. And I've banged my head against this because I'm a person who, with something like that, even though, like I say, I have an incredible ability to discern and to read energy and to read things, but there are times when I have to have a certain amount of faith in the stuff that I do. And in that, especially if a person is convincing, if they're articulate and they form sentences well, and they, they make salient points. Like, I have to a degree, take them at face value and what they say, right? The messages that they espouse and that they put forth about service and whatever, etc., and forgiveness and acceptance and all of these things. So it was confusing to me when I encountered this message and I say, damn, that's dope, because I'm the same way. I have the same heart for this, X, Y, or Z, whatever it might be it change, agitating, organizing, mobilizing, any of these things, right, that are a part of change, a larger part of, or change, they're a part of a larger change, right? And now I would hear this, and then I'd run forward to this message and to these people, and then be like, damn. Over and over, I start to see that, well, I give y'all, this is what we talked about. This is the kind of energy that we talked about. This is the kind of message. This is the voice. This is the confidence. This is the spiritual and intellectual power. This is the kind of change that comes from the systems and structures personally that I've implemented in my life to go from where I was, where I got to, where I'm going, where I'm headed, where I'm currently at. And this is what comes of it. This is a true representation of what these things look like in my life. This is what happens when I set a high personal standard for my daily life, and I am unwaveringly committed to that. This is what happens. This is it, right? And I am a mosaic of all of my experiences, good and bad, everything that has ever happened in Chris's life. This is the sum total of those things today, this very second. What you're faced with, what you're listening to. What I began to see and understand is, okay, so I would hear this message and I would deliver this energy, but then I would get this funny roadblock. Okay, well, I know how to go around roadblocks. So I'll go around, and maybe that's just that situation. Maybe it's always, I will always internalize it. Maybe I didn't do something right. Maybe I'm too new. Maybe I didn't read something right. Maybe I didn't see something. And this pattern would continue. And then I stopped and I realized, I was like, hold up, bro. Like, hold up, man. Like, I know that, like, yeah, these things, these places, this stuff that I go through, these are spots that God has circled on the map for me, right? Like, my higher power wants me to go through these things. He wants me to face these things. He wants me to be able to determine, like, what tool I need to implement, how I should, like, move forward into this or move away from it, or if I should, command certain things of myself or my environment. And what I realized is there's a double meaning here. These systems and operators, they don't want what they say they want. They don't want the actual spiritual and moral reformation that comes with this kind of change that I've implemented in my life. They don't want that. They don't want that. I mean, they do until, like, while I've said this before, while there is a convergence of interest, right? As soon as you start to diverge in those interests, that's when things start to get a little wacky. So that's why I say they would rather have, the preferred version would be refurbished or reconditioned. Because what do you have then? You don't actually have a new being. You don't have a fundamentally new thing, right? You have the same thing, just with a little spit shine, a couple of new parts, but still the same mechanisms, right? The same thing overall and in general, and something that can be led, not that being led is inherently bad, but if that's all you're doing is being led by the nose, by ideology, narratives, and you're not challenging any of these feelings that you have brought on by any of these things, right? You're not questioning anything. Impressionable, malleable, agreeable, all of the things that don't come, that I didn't come with. Like, and not that I'm completely disagreeable, I'm not any more than I have been historically in my life, a person who, and I think this is just a part of what my disposition is. Like, I've not been someone who can be like, well, that doesn't feel good. And maybe there were parts in my life where I didn't feel comfortable calling that out. Because maybe I felt like I would be a bit of a hypocrite because I don't live up to those things. Like, I don't give the order of respect and grace and compassion that I would demand from people at certain points in my life. So then I wouldn't feel comfortable, because I internally, I think I would acknowledge that I was a bit of a hypocrite for doing that. But now I do live that way, and I do give people these things in the manner and magnitude in which I expect them for myself. And the system don't like that. They don't. They say they want one thing. It says it wants one thing, but it actually does not. Right? Now, when I talk about experiences, I think the way that it would be ideally approached or seen work well would be that although I have dissimilar experiences to some of the people that I work with or that I may serve or whatever, even from my wife, it is actually based on those experiences that are not related. I guess they would be in a human way, but that it's possible that we reach a consilience of understanding where these experiences, again, although seemingly not related, experiences and perspectives converge, right? Because that's where we can say, oh, shit, okay, cool. So all of the stuff that we're afraid of, all of the things that we don't understand about a different person or a population of people, or using myself as an example, all of the things that we don't understand about Chris, whereas we may interpret his confidence as aggression. I don't know, maybe that could be something to do with his physical presentation, or maybe our feelings are biased based on collateral from an experience that we had with him 5 or 6 years ago. Or possibly, maybe in this instance, I'm having a little trouble thinking for myself because I've heard X, Y, and Z from one person or a certain source about Chris that I feel like I have to trust because I have a long-standing working relationship and collateral with this person or group of people, and I don't with him. So maybe I won't recognize that his newness and that working and long-standing collateral is being leveraged against him unfairly. Just as an example. I mean, tell me if that didn't make sense to y'all, then we could try to work it out in a different way, but that's the way it makes sense in my head, and that's how it comes out. Again, or in addition, I should say, and this is something that I have to include myself in. Caution ourselves, about being too rigid in applying the standards and understanding of today, especially regarding ourselves. I guess this kind of relates to what I'm talking about, the standards and understandings of even today's experiences or the experiences you had with a person in the past, even if it's recent, to our long-term potential and futures and what our overall contributions could be. Because if you do that, if we're too rigid in those things, in the application of those things, I have to believe that we're intentionally stepping over opportunities to come together and grow, to come together and build, to come together and learn. And isn't that the point? Isn't that the point? Grace, humility, the things that get thrown around, I think, just perfunctorily that I don't know would be if people would take even a moment to reflect on what it means given the context. Because if it applies good for you, it must apply good for me. And imply good for you and imply good for me. It doesn't just stop and somehow turn into something different just because we're considering it for me. Because think about this. And this I've seen like befuddle people with regard to me. And you may have had similar experiences. When we're talking about progress, specifically being so fundamentally different from what we used to be, from what I used to be. Like I don't wake up every day and my first order of business is finding a drink and, a loaded pipe. It's not my first thing that I worry about. So then we should be having different discussions. I have these discussions about recovery. Sure, for me, because it helps me. I keep what I have by giving it away, by promoting this message and recovering out loud and visibly so people can see a practical version of recovery. I say this shit all the time. But if we're talking about progress and moving forward and change, the kind that we all talk about, but it seems like we're all some of us are afraid to step up when it's time to step up. We should be having different discussions. But instead, we're not. We're still having discussions. This is why I say that I believe that the system doesn't want the kind of spiritual and moral reformation that it claims that it does. Neither do its managers or operators, I should say, because I'm still continuing to go into places and having discussions about changes within myself. I have to recondition the environment every fucking time, it feels like. It may not be every time, but it's often enough that it fucking gets old, right? So why are we having those discussions? And you can insert person X where I am. I'm just using myself as an example because it's easy. Why are we not discussing the changes? Why are we discussing the changes within me? And we're not discussing the changes that need to be found within the systems that we all agree are fucked and breaking humanity. Why are we still doing shit like that? So you can, like I say, take me out, but insert yourself, insert a client, insert a population you serve, insert a kid, insert a vulnerable population, doesn't matter. Why are we still talking about that? And we're not talking about any of the changes that need to be found or seen in the systems that are not being seen or found in the systems. Why is that shit not happening? Why are we not talking about it? Not in a meaningful way. I'll tell you why. Because it's not set up to change. The system's not set up to change. The system is set up to subvert, distract, and maintain status quo. That's what the systems are set up for. And this is tough, right? Because I circle back to a person like me in their newness to a position or an environment or work. The standard is, there's a standard that dominant cultures is the measuring stick. That's the thing that we hold all other things up against to see if they measure up, to see if they make the cut. And you can, you can have all of these different qualifications and all of these different things, but if you're minus one thing, and that's membership to this dominant culture pertaining to the system, it's going to be a little bit difficult. Going to be a bit more difficult for you. So that's why I have always, and I still always promote this idea that, and I didn't even know that this is what I'm doing, but if you're doing the same thing, I want you to listen to this, and I want you to take it with you everywhere you go. If you're going through hardship right now, and you've been going through hardship for a while, be it addiction, a toxic relationship, maybe you're a victim of abuse, maybe you're a child who's a victim of abuse, you live in a hostile environment, you live in a dysfunctional home. Maybe you poor as hell, whatever. You got something that's challenging you. What you're doing is you're paying tuition into the school of experience that you can't find a place to become certified or graduate from that's accredited, right? Because the curriculum changes, and it can change suddenly. It's dynamic in nature, and it's unpredictable. You might feel like, well, you can predict one thing for sure, and that tomorrow will likely be, if I'm lucky, as fucked up as today was. The likelihood of that is probably pretty high. But I'm telling you, if at all possible, even for a moment or two, reframe that perspective and listen to what I just said. You are paying tuition into the school of experience that is invaluable. You cannot collect anywhere else. And know that may not feel good because you don't have a choice.